All right, guys. Hey, quick video today. Um, so we got to do a little bit of word problems with quadratics, and quadratics is hard enough. So I know you might be thinking, dude, really word problems with that? Like that's too much. We're gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna show you one type of word problem that you might see at some point in the future, um, just so you can kind of get an idea of how these things work. So I'm gonna through one problem. I'm gonna give you two problems exactly like it to practice. Should be pretty quick, pretty easy. So let's get started. So the idea of this problem is we're given a rectangle, right? The length of the rectangle is 5 inches more than the width. So look at how they've labeled this rectangle. You won't always get the picture. Sometimes you have to draw it, but in this case, I wanted to give it to you. So we don't know what the length or the width is, right? It just says the length is 5 more than the width. So if we call the width x, and the length is 5 more than that, then the length is x plus 5. So that's how they set that up. We don't know either of the side lengths, but we know the length is 5 more than the width. So if this is x plus 5, right? And then it tells us the area of the rectangle is 24 square inches, right? The area is 24 square inches. So the first thing it asks us to do, it says write an equation to represent the area of the rectangle. Well, I know that area of a rectangle is length times width, right? That's area of a rectangle. So my equation here, well, the length is x plus 5. The width, I'm going to say the width is x, and all that equals a. Well, what's the area? It's 24. So here's the equation for our area. The length times the width, right? Length times width, x times x plus 5 equals the area, which is, it told us was 24. So that's how we set it up. The next part says solve the equation for x. So how are we going to solve that equation? Well, if you look at this, it's kind of messy, right? Let's simplify this left side and see what we're working with. So x, if I distribute that x in there, I've got x squared plus 5x equals 24. Hey, and hopefully this is looking familiar to you guys now. I got an x squared, I got a 5x, and I've got a constant. It's looking almost like standard form. Uh, the only issue is I got to get everything to one side so that it equals 0 before I solve this thing, right? So we're solving this equation now. I got x squared plus 5x minus 24 equals 0. So this thing is now in standard form and it equals 0. That's exactly where we want to be, because now we can try to solve this thing either by factoring or by quadratic formula. Let's see if it's factorable first. Are there any numbers that multiply to negative 24 and add to 5? There actually are. So I'm going to bring this thing up here. I've got x minus 3, x plus 8 equals 0, right? Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24. Negative 3 plus 8 is positive 5. So that's my factors. And I'm going to go ahead and start skipping this step now. That tells me x equals 3 and x equals negative 8, right? Because we would end up splitting these apart, solving for each, right? And hopefully what you guys are kind of noticing now is that these just end up changing signs. X equals 3, x equals negative 8. So kind of the main idea of this question is part C. It says identify which solution from part B represents the width of the rectangle and which represents the length of the rectangle, right? So um, if we're thinking about this, there's two different values for x. What this does not mean is one of them is 3, one of them is negative 8, right? These are both x. So we got to figure out which one of these solutions makes sense for our situation. It can either be 3 or negative 8 in this case. want you to think about something. If the width is x, can it make sense for x to be negative? Can you have a side length be a negative number? The answer to that is no, because you can't have a negative distance. So that means -8 cannot be one of our solutions. It is a solution to the quadratic that we had, but it's not a solution to our question in context. So x equals 3 is our answer. It is our solution to the quadratic. But this part is now saying, what is the width and the length? Well, if you think about it, the width is x, and if x is 3, then what are we going to write for the width? We're going to write 3, right? Well, in this case, the length is x plus 5. So if x is 3, to find the length, I'm going to say, well, if it's x plus 5 and x is 3, it's going to be 3 plus 5, which equals 8. So that means if I were to kind of sketch out this rectangle again, I know the side lengths now are going to be 3 by 8. So if you got questions about this, definitely reach out, ask me. I just wanted to show you one example of a word problem you might see, just to kind of get your brain thinking about it. Didn't want to throw too much at you. Try out the 2 problems on Canvas, and they're exactly like this. So just follow this format, and you should be good to go. Have an awesome day.